Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SCRC Perspective on Facilities and Grounds. This program will be 1 hour. It will be recorded. My name is Matt Harper. I'm the education manager for APWA. And before we get started, I'm going to run through some software points that you might find helpful. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat link there. And if you click on that, you will be able to chat with anyone specifically or the whole group that is in attendance today. And feel free to use that chat feature to send questions to our panelists. We will do our best to see those questions and address those questions as they come in. Also, if you see manage participants at the bottom of your screen, click on that and you can see the people that are in the room today and you can raise your hand. I'll be monitoring that as well. If you have something to add or if you have a question, you can put it that way by raising your hand and I'll find you and we'll unmute you and get your question out there to the group. Please be courteous and keep yourself muted. If you are not already do so, please do that now. This is one of 3 live sessions that we have this month for PWX at Home April Facilities and Grounds. Next week is the Spotlight On program, and we're currently going on right now is the certificate program. If you have any questions on that, you can email me, mharper@apwa.net or education@apwa.net. This is not the one and only time these will be available. They will be recorded. This and the Spotlight On program, the certificate program will come back around. So if you missed it this time and you wanted to be added to the next time we offer that certificate program, please let us know. And it's now time for me to turn it over to the chair of the Small Cities Rural Communities Committee, Allison Abel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Abel, and I serve as the chair for the Small Cities Rural Communities Committee. Small communities are defined by APWA as communities that serve 50,000 residents and less. Over 75% of our APWA members that represent municipalities represent small communities. I would like to welcome everyone to the SCRC Perspective panel discussion. I see a lot of familiar names, so welcome back to those who have tuned in before. For those of you that haven't tuned in yet, well, welcome. This is being recorded, so I will try to be on my best behavior, but I can't make any guarantees. Each month, with the PWX at home format, representatives from our small communities will host a panel discussion to talk about a variety of issues. The SCRC committee collaborates with various other technical committees within APWA throughout the year to provide this valuable content to our members. We have done 9 of these, actually 10 of these so far. It's crazy how many of these we've done. So in August, we focused in on utilities and right-of-way. September was management of fleet in small communities. October, we discussed the snow operations in small communities and what that looks like. November, resources on managing operations and maintenance in small communities. December, leadership and management tools. January, we hosted 2 panel discussions, one on asset management and the other on engineering and technology. February, we talked about resources to manage your water resources facilities. And then in March last month, we provided participants insight on solid waste practices. So be sure to continue to sign up for the future SCRC Perspectives. We have 3 more months that we will be doing this. A complete listing of our upcoming panel discussions can be found on the APWA's website. Due to the popularity of the SCRC panel discussions, we are looking at additional opportunities to continue these conversations beyond the PWX at home. So be sure to look out for future webinars and sessions at PWX as we'll continue to have these conversations to help out our small cities and know that you're not in this alone. There's plenty of us out there that are struggling with the same issues that you are. This month's panel discussion will focus on facilities and grounds. Each community is organized differently, and each of us has a different set of challenges that we have to deal with in order to serve our residents. Facilities and grounds is at the heart of public works in each of our organizations. We have two panelists with us today to share their experiences in serving in small communities with respect to focusing in on facilities and grounds. Our panelists include Keith and Richard. I would like to and have both of them introduce themselves. I will also be sprinkling in my little tidbits. By now, you guys know everything about my city, so we'll be introducing our other panelists here in just a minute. But my name is Allison Abel, as I said before. I serve as the Public Works Director for the City of Parkville, Missouri. Parkville is located about 10 miles northwest of downtown Kansas City, Missouri. We serve about 7,000 residents in the City of Parkville. And Public Works in my community includes street and storm. We do maintain parks under Public Works as well as our storm sewer, our sanitary sewer utility. So we've got a wastewater treatment plant and lift stations that are under the purview of Public Works. With each of our divisions of Public Works, we have several public areas, several buildings and facilities that we are responsible for maintaining. So right now I'd like to invite the other panelists to provide a brief introduction. We will start with Keith and then go on to Richard. Keith, you want to start us off?
Sure. Good morning. You know, Allison, I'll have to send some stuff your way. My former city manager from another city retired, and he lives in your community. So I'll make sure that he comes and, you know, gives you some feedback on a regular basis.
No,
as we
please don't
all,
send me away.
we all love in this business feedback, right, from our customers.
I have enough frequent flyers as it is. I don't need one more.
So I'm Keith Reeser. I'm the Public Works Director in Littleton, Colorado. We're about 50K. We're one of the oldest suburbs of Denver. We've been incorporated since the 1850s, which is a really old town here in Colorado. And around us, I was just talking to the other folks, and we've had close to 1 million people move in around us in the last 20 years. So that's really impacted everything that's in our community as well. I've been fortunate to work in some other communities and in the private sector and have represented APWA in other parts of the world. So looking forward to talking to everybody. And within my Public Works Department, we've got fleet, facilities, sanitary, engineering, transportation, development review. Let's see, I'm sure I'm leaving part of my staff out there and they'll point that out to me. One of my managers in this area, my grounds manager's on, so I'm sure she'll put some quality control in the chat if I completely misrepresent us today. So with that, I'll flip it over to you, Richard.
And remember, Keith, this is being recorded so they can show you in all your glory after this is over.
Oh, don't worry. That's no problem for me. More than happy.
Richard, you want to provide a brief introduction?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard Hardy from the city of Valdosta. I'm actually the Deputy City Manager of Operations, which has oversight of the Public Works Department, utilities, and engineering. However, underneath of the realm of Public Works, we have oversight of the cemetery, 33 buildings, a municipal auditorium, sanitation, fleet management, and we just taken over the transit system. So a lot of things going on, a lot of things moving, and excited to be part of this this today.
Great. Well, thank you for that brief introduction. I want to dig a little bit deeper and get to know your community a little bit more. So tell me a little bit more about the communities that you guys serve and what Public Works looks like in your organization as far as, what are some common struggles that you have going on? You know, for me, I mentioned that we've got 200 acres of riverfront park. That is a challenge because, riverfront parks flood. So we're still recovering from the flood of 2019. So that is one of my biggest headaches because we do have a lot of facilities and, down in the parks that had to be restored. So tell me one of, the biggest headaches that you guys have had recently in the community that you serve. So Richard, you want to start us off and then we'll flip back to Keith?
Yes, I would say one of the biggest challenges that we're having in Valdosta. Valdosta is a relatively, older city, and the facilities, the structures, it's just degrading the structures, just making sure that we can repair them, finding ways to keep them repaired, upgrading the facilities. That would probably be our major challenge, just looking at ways to upgrade, enhance our facilities.
Keith, tell us a little bit more about the challenges you have in your community.
Well, Littleton, as I mentioned earlier, has been around a long time, and everybody's grown up around us and immediately adjacent to us. And, that's put a lot of pressure on our existing infrastructure and our needs. And I've been here probably 3 years or so. And prior to that time, we didn't have any asset management platforms, shockingly, not even things like transportation master plans. And so, we've been on this curve of really defining where we are and what the future is, and, driving a community conversation about, hey, you haven't invested in your community and your assets, and you need to do that now, or you're going to continue to kind of pay the price for that. Our public works facility, for example, we purchased from what's now Xcel Energy, and 75% of the buildings are pre-1950 and haven't been touched. So we have some of those issues. And I also have a riverfront park, which is 800 acres. And it's a great story for us as community leaders. Back in the 60s, there was a huge flood, and they built a giant flood control dam upstream from us. And our community took that all the way to the Supreme Court to basically force the Corps to not just make it a straight run flood channel. And that's paid dividends for us for decades now. And it's a great story of how, as local communities, we can really still make a difference in what our communities look like and the assets for our folks. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Great. So I want to hear a little bit more about the staff resources that you have available for the facilities and grounds in particular. I've got, as I mentioned, we've got several areas of our public works that takes care of facilities and grounds. We have a train depot that we maintain. We've got several shelter buildings. We've got a farmer's market. We've got the 200 acres of parks. I've got 3 full-time staff members that maintain the parks. And then we do have up to 4 seasonal people that help with mowing during the busy season of our parks. What kind of staff resources do you guys have, both on the operations side and then also on the administrative side, that kind of help with, maybe scheduling, event space or something like that, whatever goes into the operations and administration of facilities and grounds? I'd like Keith, if you could start us off.
Sure. Sort of put it in perspective, across our buildings portfolio, we have about 40 facilities. We recently went through what I would call a divorce with our fire department of 120 years and had them join a district. And so fortunately, I do not have 15 fire stations to take care of anymore, which is, for those of you that ever have been a facility support for fire departments, they're a high maintenance customer, let's put it that way. And so on that side of the house, on the facility side, we have 11 staff members. And when we talk about COVID later, I'll talk about some of the impacts on that and what that's actually done for us in a positive perspective on the facility side. On the ground side, we have over 1,400 acres of parks in our community. And we have a long relationship with a Parks and Rec district, which overlays our community and a few others. And so we kind of co-manage those facilities. They handle a lot of the maintenance, but there's some of that still belongs to us. And, between a combination of open space, parks and medians, we're still throwing water on 2 million square feet of turf a year, which is not great in the high desert. So, and that side of the house, we have 8 pretty much on all year round on the ground side. And we supplement that with seasonals, although last year during COVID, we didn't add any seasonals, which really created a different dynamic in our team operations last year.
Okay. Richard, do you want to give us an idea of what kind of staff and what roles they have for your community?
Yes, for our grounds, we have a right-of-way. We have 28 individuals that are assigned to a right-of-way that maintains all of our right-of-way, all of the green space. All of our parks falls underneath the park authority. However, There's some other green spaces within the city that we do maintain. Within the cemetery itself, it's a 66-acre cemetery, and we have 13 individuals that work there full-time, and then 3 seasonal workers. Those areas keep, with the amount of rain, the sun keeps them pretty busy maintaining those areas. For the building maintenance, as I stated earlier, we have about approximately 33 buildings, but most of that is contract out for its janitorial services and any type of additional support, whether it be HVAC, electrical. We're contracted through, we outsource that. So, and that's how we maintain those buildings.
Great. I know we've touched on a few of these and answered some of these already, but I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper. We've got the different types of city-owned facilities. In my community, we maintain City Hall. We've got our street shop. We've got our parks building. We've got several shelter buildings. We've got, open space. We've got ball fields. I just built a pickleball court. We've got 2 dog parks, cemetery that actually we hire somebody to mow that. And then the train depot and some of the other, we've got 3 neighborhood parks. Give us a little bit of an idea of what other kinds of facilities and grounds that you maintain within your community that might be above and beyond what normal communities may have. Richard, do you want to start us off with giving us a greater view of what your facilities and grounds look like in your community?
Yes, we have a 1,200 seat Mathis City Auditorium. It's pretty unique. It's historic. It was built in the early 40s. So that's one of the infrastructure challenges that we're faced with. As we touched a little bit on the cemetery. Most of our buildings, they are historical. At one time or another, they were something else before they became City Hall or the customer service or the city annex. All of them, basically, like I stated, they came from existing buildings. And, you look back in history, you go, wow, this was the general store. This was Main Street. But now it's, like I said, City Hall. And, those are the unique aspects that we deal with daily, just currently maintaining the older structured building, the infrastructure.
Just to follow up to that, how many do you have that are officially on the historic register?
Now, that is a very good question.
Sorry, that wasn't in the outline. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you can give us a roundabout number.
I would say probably about 25 buildings within the city area that are
Historic-ish.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got some ish buildings too. You would think that they're historic, but I'm not officially sure if they're on the historic register or not. And I guess another follow-up to that, sorry to put you on the spot, but now do you have expertise on staff to handle the historic-ishness of those buildings, or do you consult that out with somebody else? Is there a third party that assists you with the maintaining the historic nature of those buildings?
Yes, we do. We have one individual on staff that oversees that entire historical aspect. Yes.
Or the historic-ishness of it.
Yes.
I'm totally going to coin that term. Okay, Keith, why don't you give us a little bit more of a deeper view into what your facilities and grounds looks like?
Well, to add to the historic flavor, since I'm originally from the East Coast, and my thoughts of what's historic is very different than when I came to Colorado. It only takes 50 years to become historic here under the Colorado state law. So I have a lot of employees that would qualify as historic at this point in time, as I'm sure a lot of us do. I'll kind of continue that. We have a couple of unique features from a historic standpoint. We have the old City Hall, which is now a performing arts center. And, one of our more anomalous features is we have a train depot that's been moved twice and now sits in the middle of a regional transportation district's light rail station. And we've just been going through a process where there's no sanitary or water to the building, but we want to operate it as a coffee shop. So it's actually permitted as a food cart inside the building, for us to get past the, health inspection regulations to actually provide that service. So, it's one of those creative problems we all kind of end up with. Within our park structures, we also have a fully operational farm, historic farm, which is adjacent to our museum complex, which is kind of a unique little bear out there unto itself. And, a few other locations like that. Our city hall infrastructure was built in the 1970s, and it looks like it. And like a lot of our facilities, wasn't touched. And one of the great benefits for us of COVID is we'd already had planned some renovation work there, and then we supplemented that with some CARES Act funds. And to be honest with you, it's been great not having people in the building trying to do a remodel that we would have had to move people around. So that's actually been a really, great benefit for us during this time. Fortunately, I don't have a cemetery here. I've had those in the past, so you guys can keep your cemeteries for fun. And overall, I think on the infrastructure side, on the facility side, it's really a challenge of just not having maintained things. The usual portfolio, museums and libraries. We have a library that we manage as well, and so the museum and library are two of our most challenging buildings to manage during COVID and post-COVID. They will be, because proximity, people, the types of uses. So those are some of the unique things that we kind of have in our portfolio.
Great. And what color is the refrigerator in that 1970s building? Is that like an avocado or a burnt orange or something like that?
No, but the bathroom is. We haven't renovated the bathroom, so much of the fixturing there has that fine avocado look of the 70s. So
Gotta
gorgeous.
love it. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Well, and it's historic in nature too.
Well, related to that, interestingly enough, one of the challenges in our community, which we have a whole burst of mid-century modern that was built during the last century, and it's that particular type of architecture, and some people love it, and some people honestly hate it. And that's one of our biggest historic preservation challenges in the community, is how do we deal with that particular architecture and time and historic preservation in our town, because there's a fair amount of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's hopefully community development or somebody on the building side can deal with a lot of that, some of those issues whenever it comes to private property.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we tend to, Public Works tends to get roped into just about anything and everything these days.
Yeah. The other thing I'd add to that is we're, on the ground side, we're dynamically really trying to take a look at our forestry overall. And, we're establishing a new forestry plan, but the approach we're taking is, a lot of forestry plans are built on preservation of the forest that you have today in your canopy today. And what we've really decided to do as we've revamped this is talk about what do we want our canopy to be in 25 to 30 years based on what we know is coming down the line, whether it's climate change or emerald ash borer. We've been through beetle kills and all the other things. And so we're really taking a different dynamic approach to the forestry management as to where do we want to be as opposed to where we are today and preserving it, because that'll just be part of it, and really looping that around, environmental stewardship and sustainability.
Yeah, because you really have to look at the health of the trees and the forest and everything like that. And is it really worth keeping a tree that may be struggling and declining and a hazard, rather than maybe having a deforestation plan?
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the additional support that you guys need, especially in small communities. We are constantly doing more with less people. So with the limited resources that we have available, we sometimes have to look outside the organization and be creative in order for us to provide the services that we need to our facilities and grounds, and ultimately to our residents. What outside resources have you guys used in conjunction with your city staff to provide this, provide that extra value? So Keith, I'm going to start off with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the additional resources, additional support that you get from outside sources?
Yeah, we have, you know, kind of like Richard mentioned, we have some outside custodial contractors that help us with some of our facilities. You know, we're small, so a lot of our, you know, mowing and things like that, we do annual contracts with. We have some outreaches in the community where we outsource snow plowing as well to a third party. But you know, we've really revamped our approach over the last couple of years to just bring more on-call contractors into place, both small stuff as well as bigger stuff, and on the engineering side as well is very important for us to react and do that. And that's been important to us as we've tried to chase additional grant funds because we don't have a lot of shelf-ready projects sitting there to go. And so the ability to dynamically reach out to our partners and get help on that in real time has been important to us. And, you know, one of the things that we've also done for our construction side on the facilities is, you know, we're a traditional design bid build, and we moved that initially to CMGC. And so what we've started to do is, like this year, we really hire the architectural team and the CMGC on the same day and tell them it's a design build project. And that's really the way we're handling a lot of it because so much of our work is a renovation, as it is in a lot of small communities and with older buildings. And a lot of times you just don't know until you rip the wall open and go, really? They built that? So, you know, that's one of the dynamics that we've used in terms of kind of on-call services, both professional and construction, to tackle some things for us that have been, you know, super helpful and made us more responsive and dynamic to the community. And I think really to our internal customers as well.
Yeah, we also use on-call engineers and architects to help expand. As the public works director, I'm the only engineer that is on staff. I fill a lot of different roles and I need a lot of help in a lot of different areas. So being open to having those on-call contracts, whether it's, you know, having, you know, we've considered having contracts for some of the mowing that we do, some of the landscaping and all of that, just to, you know, in part help out some of the local businesses that are in our communities, but also to expand our resources that we have and help take away some of the burden that may be on our small staff. Richard, do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the additional resources that you have outside your organization that you utilize?
Yes, as you know, everyone is keyed on, you know, the third party contractors, contract on call. We use primarily, you know, that's what we use most of the time. You know, we don't necessarily hire, you know, HVAC technician or have several around, you know, waiting on for something to happen. So we have on call, works very well in that nature. However, some of our grounds work, you know, we use community service individuals that's, you know, that's found themselves in some types of trouble, working well with the court system. They provide us a helping hand with that, and probationers that are moving from transitioning from back into the community. So we have the ability to utilize them within the cemetery, some of the right-of-way projects, and some of the custodian requirements. So, but I guess pretty much just like everyone else here, the on-call has worked very well for us.
Allison, just to add to what Richard said, you know, we've been fortunate. One of the things we've taken on in the last couple of years is we've built partnerships with some nonprofits that are transitioning members of the homeless community. And we've brought that into our workforce. And in fact, we also have one of those nonprofits that created basically their own landscape maintenance company as part of their transition for employees. And so we've been able to use them for some of the landscape work, but also we've brought them into our snow removal operations as well. And we've used some of those folks more for a lot of the, you know, sort of hand shoveling operations that you have to do versus some of the equipment stuff that we have our staff do. So that's another avenue that we've found to be successful just recently in the last, you know, 24 months probably.
Yeah, we created an Adopt a Spot program so that some of the small community groups can landscape a certain area around the city. That has been successful. We've got the Rotary Club that has an adopt a spot right there at First and Main as you're coming into downtown. We have strong partnerships with our Main Street organization where they beautify our pocket park that is right at the heart of downtown. Eagle Scout projects, Boy Scouts, all of that. We use our community volunteers to help out with. We have a nature sanctuary and a Sullivan Nature Sanctuary. We've got 2 different nature sanctuaries that are distinctly, they're very different in nature, but that's mostly volunteer driven, where we have volunteer days set up so that they can come and help get rid of some of the invasive species and help enhance the nature area. And then, we've got a gentleman from the community who also serves as our Santa Claus for our Trek with Santa in the Nature Sanctuary. He also mows our cemetery. So you've got those close connections and overlapping connections with people, especially whenever you're dealing in small communities. The Santa Claus is the guy that mows the cemetery, but luckily he doesn't wear his Santa Claus suit whenever he mows.
It's a good safety color, though. I mean, at least you'll be able to find them. A good safety
Yeah, that's
color.
true. That's very true. So it takes having the right tool makes all the difference on the operations side of Public Works. And just wanted to find out, what tools do you guys use to maximize your efficiencies within your organization? This could include tools for manual labor or computer software. With us, we are a small community. We don't have to plow our highways. So we end up using our 1-ton pickup trucks and have the snowplow blade and the salt spreader equipped on each one of our trucks. So we've got 10 of our Public Works staff members from Parks, Public Works Administration, as well as our street side. So we have 10 people that do snow operations each year, and we just equip their workhorse, their work truck, with the snowplow blades and the spreader, so that we don't have to buy additional equipment. Plus, with the hills and everything, it's easier for us to navigate with the smaller trucks than to have the large pickups. So that's kind of our workhorse for our organization. Forget where we left off. I think we're at Richard. Richard, can you tell us about some of the tools that you can't live without, some of the tools of the trade that make you successful in the facilities and grounds?
Yes, we've we upgraded all of our tractor mowers and everything to, enclosed cab with, the Wi-Fi, so, it's a whole lot easier and a lot more fun when you're out the weather, when it's 105 degrees and you're trying to cut. So our Tiger mowers, and, we increased the size of the mowing deck. So we're, normally use cutting an 8-foot section. Now, I mean, it's anywhere from 18 to 24 feet with one pass. So makes the job a whole lot easier. Some of the other right-of-way crews, once again, increased the deck size of their zero-turn mowers, from 54 to 72 inches. Put all of these, about each crew, have 3 separate crews, enclosed trailer, so they can store all of their equipment. So when they go out to their site destination, they're there, have everything they need, everything from, chainsaws to weed eater string, oil, gas, everything. So just trying to stay up for that quality of life perspective, making sure they have the equipment that they need. So when they go out, it's a whole lot more fun, while they're out there. Same thing with the trucks, our dispatch trucks, making sure that they have the compartments with everything they need. I think that's one of the biggest things. When they go out on a job site, they have everything they need. They don't have to keep running back and forth to the public works site to pick up those items. So that's where we've keyed in on. We've listened to the employees on when we do make those purchases. We pick and choose individuals, get them involved as we go to equipment shows, and do a lot of research on the type of equipment that would best meet our needs.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I did a few years ago, whenever we were looking at purchasing a couple of zero-turn mowers, was putting the extra and it didn't cost that much, but putting a little extra investment in the comfort seat, that made all the difference. And the guys love it, being able, especially those that have to sit on the mower for 8 hours a day. It makes a difference on, how you're sitting and where you're sitting, and, how thick the cushion is, and, how it conforms to your body and everything. So just making sure that those little tweaks that make all the difference for your employees. Keith, you want to tell us a little bit about some of the tools that you guys just can't live without? I think you had touched earlier on asset management. If you hadn't planned on talking about that, I'd like to I'd like to invite you to talk about a little bit about asset management and how it helps you guys too.
Yeah, I was really waiting for Richard's rundown on their snow removal equipment, but I guess we didn't cover that. So, here in Colorado, obviously we get a fair amount of snow, and unlike other parts of the Midwest or the Northeast, we have a standard policy where we don't touch residential streets until we get more than 6 inches of snow, because the sun comes out and melts it. And so, we had a storm a couple of weeks ago, well, a few weeks ago now, that was 2 feet plus. And so, you tactically have to deal with that differently. So we have equipment that supports bigger stuff like that we just have to have, tandem axles and those kind of things to push snow. In terms of, from an equipment standpoint, over the last 3 years, we've really built asset management platforms in all of our service areas. And, for me, back in 2007, when I went to Australia as a Jennings Fellow, this was one of the topics we were already talking about. Was in Australia was climate change and asset management. And, so we've built, we have an asset management platform, obviously in fleet, one that we've adapted in facilities as well. And then for all the rest of our operations, we've moved to a platform for that. And the strategy that I took in that was I bought the basis of the asset management software platform, the big dollar portion, out of my sanitary and stormwater utilities. And then all my other divisions in public works, I kind of hung the ornaments on the Christmas tree, let's put it that way, for a lot less cost. Which, we didn't take the base platform out of the general fund, which made it easier for us to start to tackle that. And we cambered every inch of pipe in our city and all those things. And as a result of that, we now know what we have. We have a rating, quality rating on every asset that we have. And then now we're into a phase where we're really looking at risk analysis for all those and how does it work. And the important thing, I think, on the operational side with that is, it allows us to make, and our crews to make, more strategic decisions about the work that they do. Whether they're zipping out there to take a look at something on, root issues and the sanitary side. Hey, we know we got to hit this place every 6 months, but this place every 2 years, or similar things on, maintenance out there. And that's made a big difference for us. And one of the places it's making the biggest difference is in our ground side, because, we only get 2-3 more inches a year of rain than Phoenix does. So, we're in this process of trying to transition a lot of our existing grounds infrastructure to more native landscapes that use less water, that require less time from us. And having that in the asset management platform has really helped us in making strategic decisions. And then also having that conversation with our elected officials about, hey, we're making good decisions. This is where we need to invest money. This is where we need to go. And that anybody, I think, that's gone through that process, the value of that data is hugely helpful in trying to tell that story to the community and to your leaders. Because, we've all been at some point where, we had an operation that just felt like all the decisions and information were ad hoc and on the fly. And so I'm sure Allison is, an engineer that it's just like a cheese grater to your head with the, just on the fly ad hoc decision making. But, this asset platform is really been helpful, and our crews have embraced it fully. The technology of them having an iPad in the truck with them to look at work orders, to make decisions, to have a map in real time has been hugely helpful for us.
Great. There was a question in the chat. What asset management platform are you using, Keith?
In in fleet, we're using Faster, which is pretty common. In the facility side, we used Dude Solutions. Dude's pretty big in high academic world. Although we kind of joke, was that the last available name, I think, when they were trying to pick it.
There's
And
got to be
then,
a good story behind the name of that
yeah,
organization. Yeah.
I can tell you though, my children love the stickers that they have. They want me to bring the stickers home for them. And then we selected Cartograph after a pretty long search, process for all the rest of our stuff. And if anybody's going to move in that direction, one of the things I would really recommend is you need to field trip to other people that already have the platform in place, whether it's Cartograph or any of their competitors, and sit down. And the good part to that is you can see what they're doing, but it also helps you get your hands around their lessons learned. A perfect place to explain this is in traffic, because traffic engineers want to have, like the first time I did an asset one, they wanted to have the post, the base, the type of the screw, the sign, the direction, and everything. And we're like, you're never going to use that data. Come on. So, it's that lesson learned can really be helpful if you start down the path of trying to enhance your asset management. Using your peers is really a big help in trying to figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Well, and getting your staff thoroughly involved in this too, because making sure that you have a platform that is usable for them, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be inputting all of the information, and you don't want that to be an onerous task for them. I'm currently, looking at different asset management platforms right now, and it's exhausting seeing all the different features and, what is out there. Just a plug for our previous program, there was a long discussion about asset management in the January panel discussion. So if you guys want to, if you're interested in asset management, be sure to tune into that recording from January when we had Ken from Cartograph involved in the discussion. So I'm sure we can talk a lot more about asset management, but we've got a whole long list of things that we need to move on to. So I want to talk about the money next. Small communities have limited access to funding. We're all digging in the couch cushions and trying to shake out all those pennies that we can in order to fund our budgets and everything. Maintaining these public spaces does come at a price. And oftentimes, getting the rental fees and that kind of thing, that doesn't quite get us there with compensating for all the costs that go into maintaining that space. So I guess I want to find out from you guys, how are you guys, filling those gaps? What types of funding are you looking at to help fill those gaps? Is there an in-surge from the general fund? Do you have a separate park sales tax? Do you have any facilities, rental fee, additional fees that you have for the rental space? Are there any outside grants? I want to know where I can find some money. So Keith, why don't you start us off and tell us where you found the money?
Well, here in Colorado, we were the first state in the early 90s to pass the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And the way that works here in Colorado is any tax increase must go to the voters for approval. The city council cannot change the sales tax rate. They cannot impose anything unless it's a direct use fee without going to the voters. And then if you collect more revenue than a certain threshold, you got to give it back to the voters. And so, that creates a unique situation for us. But one of the things that, on the ground side, here in Colorado, I'm aware of very few of us now that don't have an open space sales tax. And most of those are actually at the county level, and we get a share back based on, community size. And that's great. It really helps us in terms of, kind of doing projects, but a lot of those piece of legislation here in Colorado were built around land acquisition. And so, our current open space tax, 80% of it, only 20% of it can be used for operations and maintenance, which is great for a community that's growing like we have here and, advancing their portfolio. That's not the case in Littleton. We don't have anything else to buy. So, we have to be creative in how we do that and align for our, capital projects. So there is a general fund supplement for all of that to really almost all of our operations are a general fund for open space and also for facilities. We have been very successful the last couple of years in acquiring some additional grant money that wasn't a practice here. But the learning process for our finance department has been, yes, you need to plan for local match, because the public works director is going to come to you in the middle of the year and go, hey, I got you this grant. I need some local match. And, that gives my, finance director gray hair for sure. So, but that's part of it. And we took one of our positions and kind of redid it. And about half their time is tied to grants and chasing grants, which has made a difference in our ability to bring some of that money in the door.
Yeah, whenever you're offered money, you should definitely take it, but there's always strings attached whenever you're offered free money. Richard, you want to tell us a little bit more about funding sources that you guys have in your community?
Yes, as Keith stated, the majority is from our general fund. However, there's some, out at our cemetery, we're able to put up a cell phone tower. And they put up a cell phone tower decorated as a pine tree, which brings in pretty decent funding annually. So that's a revenue source. And for our Mathis City Auditorium, we get subsidized from our local hotel and motel taxes. Provides a decent amount of income. It doesn't cover all of the cost. And we have several buildings that we actually lease out to state, it's Department of Labor building, which is a city-owned property that we lease out to the state, and we utilize it for some of our that income, along with for some of our other pieces of property that we lease out also. So everything from rental property, cell phone towers, and the local hotel tax subsidize some of the things that we're doing.
I bet the residents in the cemetery aren't complaining about the cell phone tower being there.
No.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add that we actually do have, and it's very active right in front of us right now, is obviously Colorado is at the front end of legalizing marijuana. And, I think earlier this year, since we started with the medical, I think the stat was that we've done $10 billion in weed sales in Colorado since then. And so as a local community, you can set a sales tax rate that's higher on that. And so to show you the dynamic of this is we have 4 medical dispensaries, and the citizens put a ballot initiative on last fall to add recreational. And so we have those 4 are all going to add recreational marijuana. And we expect that to add an additional $1.4 million a year into our budgets, specifically because of that one. And we haven't increased the sales tax rate on it, which more than likely we will. So that number will climb to probably 2 million, maybe 2.2 from the marijuana sales. So that's one of our, fun and unique ones here in Colorado that we like.
Well, in Missouri, they, we've got weed around here too now. So I definitely did make a note of that. Maybe that's something that we can implement. We did in 2019, the voters approved a park sales tax. So I'm able to get an additional $500,000 for us each year for us to put into our parks. But mostly that is on the new construction side, like building the pickleball courts and the baseball fields, and the large capital improvements, improving the playground equipment, our neighborhood parks. It's really hard for us to justify pulling some of that for our operations side, but that's another note that I made. So I'm definitely taking notes from this thing. So thank you guys for all the ideas. We did have a question come in from the chat. I think I'm going to start with Keith on this because I feel like you guys might have a little bit more on the technology side, but this is something that I've been interested in is how can we advance facilities and grounds maintenance using new technology, drones, electric vehicles, maybe electric vehicle charger stations, that kind of thing, or do, things that you already use? So are there some new technologies that you utilize for the facilities and grounds operations that you've got going on? So Keith, you
Yeah,
want to
we're
start us off?
sure we're transitioning some of our fleet over to electric vehicles, and we're actually that's one spot where we're focusing a fair amount of internal attention right now because we expect whatever infrastructure package comes down the line from Washington, there's going to be a component related to electric vehicle infrastructure. So we're planning for that. And as part of that, we have partnered with Xcel Energy as our electric provider. And we've gone to them to say, all right, let's look at your infrastructure and see where we can make this work in our community. That partnership has been important, and they're more than happy to do that. We continue to move to alternative fuels. Almost all of our, ground stuff is on propane versus gas, and those kind of things. So we've gone down that route. And then, to be honest with you, the asset platform has really helped us hone our maintenance quite a bit and make just more efficient decisions on deployment of people and decision making. Much like Richard talked about, just making his mower decks wider and how much of an impact that has. And the technology helps tell that story and really helps expose where you can take advantage of some of that.
I know we've been talking about drones around here since the 2019 flood, that it would be really nice if we had a drone and we had somebody on staff that had a pilot's license to operate, a larger drone so that we can get a good representation of all the flooding that occurred at different times and days, and even get before we could even get into our parks, we had to evaluate what kind of damage are we looking at, and a drone would be a perfect use for that. And then to continue to get footage and photos of the restoration progress and everything like that. So that's something we are talking about here. Richard, are there any other technologies that you're thinking about utilizing for your facilities and grounds operations?
Well, as Keith outlined earlier, our biggest thing is asset management. I would love to be advanced as far as, with the EV systems and the use of alternative fuels, but for us, we have a in-ground fuel storage facility, so we have not moved into that direction yet. So we're still a little bit behind on technology. But that is one of our it's in our 5-year plan to look at ways that we can convert some of our equipment into alternative fuels.
So Allison, related to your drone comment, this is just a thought for everybody. The argument that we actually made initially for the drone in our organization was through our communications division. And what we've been able to do is not only use that for, kind of the operational stuff, but the drone operator is actually in the communications group. It's not in Public Works. And so we work with them to, partner on pre and post flyovers of road projects, all those things that then, transfer to work in with our, internet portal and, the TV station. So that's the part of the argument that we took to the elected officials for that investment was this is about you telling the story to the community. And that's why we really need to invest in this. And so we actually took that angle through communications versus Public Works, and it gained a lot of traction with our decision makers.
Well, and I can see that the drone could be a benefit for the entire organization, especially during special events. Police may need it for, some of their operations and that kind of thing. So, okay, we are at about 6 minutes before the end of our program, so I am going to move forward with lessons learned. So as we start to develop experience in facilities and grounds within our organizations, we all have lessons learned. We've all had those experiences that may not have gone as well as we would have expected, and there's a lot that we have learned from that experience. So can you share with us some of your experiences the good and the bad. We want to hear it all. That would help other organizations with future decisions regarding facilities and grounds. I think we're back at Richard, if you want to start us off.
I would have to say just finding the right individuals to, manage your different types of programs and processes. And, it's not always about money, it's about looking at that process, process a program, take out roadblocks and don't reinvent the wheel. I found that going to other like cities, talking with, other public works directors, see how they're doing it and working with them and adopting some of their programs and styles. Some of the things, I liked, some of them I didn't. I took what I liked and utilized it, put a different spin on it, made it better. But I think that was the biggest thing, reaching out, that networking, talking to other people that had made advancements or had even made mistakes and going that route.
I've definitely learned from my own mistakes as well as other people's mistakes. So there's definitely some value in that networking, and APWA is a great place to start, in your local sections as well as in forums like this. Keith, you want to share with us some of your lessons learned?
Yeah, just to kind of stay on that same vein for a second, here in Littleton's in Arapahoe County, and we do a monthly call with all the public works directors with kind of an open agenda for about an hour over lunch once a month. And, we range from Deer Trail, which is, they don't have any paved roads, to Aurora, which is, the third largest city in the state in the same county. And, we're all facing the same challenges and learning from each other and sharing some things. And one of the lessons that was positive from that was during COVID, we encountered a situation where we had an incoming snowstorm and I had an outbreak in my streets group. So there was a possibility that I would not have enough operators to put a plow crews on the street. And so, having that network in advance to just say, hey, can I borrow somebody if I need them? Can we figure something out? And we didn't end up having to do that, but having that resource at hand was, really helpful in that scenario. In terms of screwing things up, man, I've done plenty of those over the years. I did one about 3 weeks ago. We have a historic lodge that was built in the 1920s on our campus that we took back from the lessee, and we're doing some renovations to move some of our employees in there. And there was some huge Bruce whatever trees, evergreen trees, couldn't get that one out. They were, impacting the foundation and the roof, and and they have a real low root structure, so the chance of them coming down was very high. So we made the operational decision to take those trees out. Well, I made the mistake of, just not letting my council members know ahead of time. In the morning, we started cutting the trees down between my office, the city manager's office, and the city council members. We took 45 phone calls about 6 trees. And after we said, hey, here's what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, it all went away by the next morning. But, and I know one of my key thoughts as a director is never let your elected officials be surprised if you can avoid it. And in this case, I failed to do that. And, I was a tree murderer. I was just murdering the trees out there in that neighborhood, right on our campus. So, it looks a lot better now and it's a lot safer, but, we all make those mistakes. And to me, it's, at our role at the director level, it's about, helping set direction and removing obstacles and providing resources for the talented people that we hire to be successful every day. And a lot of my thoughts are, my job is to run political interference between me, my staff, and the city council, and so in the community sometimes, so that they can focus on what they need to do. And this is just another example, so I took a lot of bullets. It was great, but if you need any
part of the job,
need any firewood, let me know. I got something to ship out to you. So.
Did the trees actually scream as they were falling down because you were murdering them?
No, but there's a senior housing facility right next door, and those people did. Not the trees.
Yeah, I think communication is a huge key to any part of, doing anything that involves the community and, keeping your elected officials in tune with what's going on because, their phones are going to ring. So you kind of alluded to it, Keith. I'm going to ask the last question about COVID. Kind of share with us your experiences with COVID. I think, Keith, you had mentioned how it impacted your snow operations. We had something very similar on our staff where we had a few people out on quarantine. There was snow. What do? You had to lower the expectations of the residents. Can you expand a little bit more on some of your experiences with COVID?
Yeah, we've had to go through that and the protocols, and we had some employees that lost family members to COVID, and that's, has an emotional impact on the rest of the group as well. On the flip side of that, when COVID hit, we did not have a city council chamber that was big enough to allow staff and council to meet social distance wise because it hadn't been renovated since the 70s. So we actually got our council and county to buy off on $1.4 million of investment in overhauling our city council chamber and adding new technology and those things. So we've had a huge win from that for our community, and it's going to become an asset that not just the city uses, but community groups get to use for the next, couple of decades. So that's been a huge positive. And frankly, not having people in the building while we tore it up and, banged and set fire alarms off has been actually great. So that's been a good lesson learned. Keep your people out of the building. Tell them there's a pandemic and it's easier to construct stuff. So
Exactly. Yeah, we were able to get up some barricades and not barriers for our city hall, and the glass all around and everything like that. And it was a lot easier to put that in when people were working remotely. So, Richard, what's your experience related to COVID?
Well, COVID was hit and miss with us. I mean, right when it kicked off, instead of having 2 individuals per vehicle, we pull every piece of equipment out of fleet, and we did our best to make sure that we had only 1 individual in each vehicle. And the vehicles that we couldn't do that, we put the plexiglass providers. Our fleet maintenance, we purchased plexiglass in every customer service building. The council chambers, we put up dividers, roped off every other seat, within City Hall. The Mathis Auditorium, we completely shut it down for quite a while. So that was the biggest things we had, where we did completely close down City Hall and Mathis Auditorium at a given point of time. So that shut down, and we've geared back up, and we started, the city has completely opened back up. But as I stated, it was just pockets, not enough individuals to shut down anything in public works. We were very cautious, but it was one time or another that, you get 2 or 3 individuals that came up positive, and then you quarantine 1 or 2. But it really didn't affect how we did business as far as not meeting our customer demands or requirements.
Yeah, it's amazing how creative we got during COVID and remote working and everything like that. How much more technology was introduced into the system. Right now I'm used to seeing my head on a square on a computer. I don't even know what it's like meeting somebody in person. So, well, I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in the panel today. We will be focusing on additional panels in the future. I hope you enjoyed this panel and were able to understand what struggles we have for facilities and grounds from a small city's perspective. If you enjoyed this panel and would like to watch others, the recordings of the previous SCRCs are available on APWA's website. The next panel is going to be on Wednesday, May 6th at noon Central Time, and the panel is going to focus in on sustainability in small communities. I look forward to seeing you guys next month. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Allison. And I'm glad you guys mentioned there at the very end, bringing people together, networking. And that's what we're really trying to do here. We're trying to connect professionals to share experiences and to share knowledge and sometimes mistakes and lessons learned, like Keith said there. So Allison said next up is sustainability. We hope to see you all then. If you do want to get involved with the SCRC committee, we welcome you to write articles for their monthly reporter article or get involved in these future SCRC perspective on programs. If you do want to participate in those, please contact me. My name is Matt Harper, and my email is mharper@apwa.net. And I hope to see everyone next month. Thank you.